Former Olympian Ryan Wedding arrives in U.S. in handcuffs after Mexico capture. Former Canadian Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding was escorted off a plane in Southern California in handcuffs on Friday, following his capture in Mexico after years on the run and a high-profile FBI manhunt. At 44 years old, Wedding, who once represented Canada in the 2002 Winter Olympics, was taken into FBI custody at Ontario International Airport in California, surrounded by federal agents after being flown back from Mexico, where he was arrested. From Olympic athlete to FBI's most wanted. Wedding's story began in competitive sports. He competed in the men's parallel giant slalom event at the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics in 2002, finishing in the middle of the pack. However, his life took a stark turn in the years that followed. Wedding was first linked to drug-related criminal activity in the mid-2000s, including a 2009 arrest in the U.S. on cocaine charges and subsequent jail time after pleading guilty. Allegations of a violent drug empire. U.S. authorities accused Wedding of leading a transnational drug trafficking network that shipped significant quantities of cocaine from Colombia through Mexico and Southern California to Canada and other parts of the United States. The FBI described him as an extremely violent criminal believed responsible for multiple murders abroad tied to his alleged operation. In March 2025, Wedding was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list, with a reward offered for information leading to his arrest. Among the charges unsealed in November were allegations that Wedding and associates orchestrated the murder of a witness in Colombia in January 2025, and that he placed a bounty on the witness in hopes of impeding the case against him. Surrender and capture. According to law enforcement sources, Wedding's capture followed weeks of negotiation after he had been under mounting pressure from U.S. authorities and law enforcement partners. While some details of the arrangement that led to his surrender have not been disclosed, sources confirmed that he ultimately turned himself into Mexican authorities before being handed over to U.S. custody. Upon arrival in California, Wedding was seen being led in cuffs by agents, a dramatic public end to one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives. What comes next? Wedding is expected to make his first appearance in federal court in the coming days to face federal charges, including drug trafficking, murder, and related offenses connected to the extensive criminal enterprise he is accused of operating. The case marks a stark and shocking transformation, from Olympic athlete to alleged leader of a violent narcotics network, a narrative that has captivated law enforcement and the public alike as one of the most unusual and high-profile fugitive stories
for the murder of innocent civilians. This individual and his organization in the Sinaloa cartel poured narcotics into the streets of North America and killed too many of our youth and corrupted too many of our citizens. And that ends today. I also want to have a tremendous shout out to the government of Mexico. President Sheinbaum, Secretary Harfouche, and the military and law enforcement officers in Mexico worked hand in glove with our teams on the ground there to apprehend last night in Mexico City, Ryan Wedding. I was privileged to be there on a previously planned trip, and this was a great operation that came together through interagency success because no one behind me and to the side of me cares about credit. They care about putting away the bad guys and safeguarding our communities. That is the leadership that President Trump has brought to the presidency. That is the support that he has brought to law enforcement from coast to coast. And I just can't say how thankful I am to be a small part of this and lead the FBI. These men and women do the hard work. But when you go after a guy like Ryan Wedding, it takes a united front. And that's what you're seeing to law enforcement from coast to coast. And I just can't say how thankful I am to be a small part of this and lead the FBI. These men and women do the hard work. But when you go after a guy like Ryan Wedding, it takes a united front. And that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing global partnerships from coast to coast. I want to give a special shout out to our ambassador in Mexico. Ambassador Ron Johnson quarterbacked this effort for us from Mexico for a year plus. As soon as he got to post at our new embassy compound there, he made this a priority and he came through. This is what leadership looks like. And this is a historic 2025 year the FBI is having. To put it in perspective, the FBI has had 67,000 arrests this year alone. That is a 200% increase. The FBI has captured 6 of the top 10 most fugitives on our board. The FBI has also seized enough fentanyl to kill 150 million Americans, a 31% increase. The FBI has arrested 35% more espionage corrupt actors from China, Russia, the DPRK, and Iran. The FBI has found and identified 6,000 children that were missing. That is up 22%. All of these historic record-breaking numbers lead to another historic record-breaking number brought to you by President Trump's leadership. That is a 20% decline in the murder rate in the United States of America. That is an all-time record for the modern era. Our communities are safeguarded by these men and women. We are thankful to be partnered with the Department of Justice and the relentless efforts to safeguard our communities by Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. But we're not done today. We're going to get back on the plane, and we've captured and apprehended another top 10 fugitive while we were in Mexico, and we're going to head east and hand him over to local law enforcement authorities. I also want to give a huge shout out to state and local law enforcement. This work is not possible